Please come. I welcome all of you to come. Singly, all together, anytime. off in the middle of a piece of Torah, right, Gabriella? I knew that I could get away with it from everybody. Right? You see, when a doctor has to do surgery, we don't ask the doctor to be compassionate and lose the patient because he feels sorry for having to make a cut. Should we tell doctor, listen, be really nice to this guy, don't do surgery on him. Doctor says, I have to. There's a broken limb there. If I don't do the surgery, I don't fix it, the person will suffer for the rest of his life. I must. But you're being so cruel, you have to cut, you have to hurt the person. Will there be pain? He says, of course there'll be pain. But I have to fix the limb. When things in when our world needs to be fixed, would we always be so ready to ask Hashem not to fix them? Would we be willing to say, Hashem, we'd rather not have the pain and leave us broken? So when we are in the midst of our agonies, when we feel alone and isolated and are filled with pain, would we say, Hashem, don't fix me. Don't heal me. Don't give me the remedy. And so when we're alone, we become inspired to go look for others. Because when we look for others, maybe they need more than we had, than we needed it. Tzaddik v'raloi. When a righteous person is suffering, would we ask Hashem to spare the tzaddik and not fix the world? When the tzaddik knows themselves, the righteous person knows that what Hashem's will in this world is always good. But here Hashem had asked Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, I want you to take the children of Israel out of Mitzrayim. I want you to stop the suffering. So Moshe said, listen Hashem, I'll make a deal with you. I'll take them out. I'll take them out of Mitzrayim for you on one condition. I don't want to know why they're suffering. Because if I will know why they're suffering, I will not stop the suffering. And if you want me to be your messenger, it's only when I say enough, you stop the pain. I don't want to know. Because if I have to know, then I may even decide maybe the best thing is not to take them out. If you want me to take them out, you have to give me the permission not to know why the righteous suffer and why the evil prosper. So when Hashem said, Moshe, I want to offer you Tzaddik v'raloi Rosha b'tovla, I'm going to offer you this information about why the good suffer. He says, Hashem, you just said that you love me. You appeared to me in the voice of my Father. You want to show me love like a father shows a child. I want you to make sure that whenever I am in pain, that you stop the pain. And whenever Bnei Yisrael are suffering, I want you to stop the pain. And so if I say, now's the time to go out of Mitzrayim, Hashem, you have to say, now's the time. Hashem said, Moshe Rabbeinu, if that's the condition for you to be my messenger, I'll give it to you. They asked him, Moshe Ponov, Moshe Mehabit, he didn't want to look, because Moshe wanted to have the power to to take Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim unconditionally, with unconditional love. No excuses, Hashem. When the time is to stop, and you'll see that every other time Moshe Rabbeinu stops Hashem from doing what Hashem says, look what Bnei Yisrael deserve to happen to them. Moshe says, Hashem, I don't want to hear about it. You know what happened in Mitzrayim? We made it a promise. You made an agreement with me. You're the God who took them out of Mitzrayim, means you're the God that gives them unconditional love. I don't want to see any pain. And every time, except for one time, Moshe's tefillos were. And I'm not going to go into Parshas Carlebach right now, because then I'll have to come out with at least 6 pieces of Torah to answer all of Gabriela's kashas before I get there. However, after Bnei Yisrael worshipped the golden calf, Bnei Yisrael would indeed make a commitment, or Hashem would make a commitment to them that He wants them to atone for the golden calf. And that means that Bnei Yisrael will always suffer. When I will remember their sins, I'll remember the Egel Hazah. I'll remember the golden calf. So that now, in every challenge that we face, we not only face today's challenge, we have to think about how are we treating Hashem. And to treat Hashem the way we need to find the answer means that we will go through suffering. So at that point, Moshe says, Hashem, I want now to know why they were going to suffer. Says Moshe, now I can't show it to you anymore. Now the history of Klal Yisrael will include some suffering. So I wanted to share one story with you. It's already the hours are getting a little bit late. I wanted to share a story with you that's not from the days of the Baal Shem Tov. I want to share a story with you that is from 1973. That's when the Yom Kippur War was, right? Thank you. There's honey in this. It's sweet. The story was told by a young man who became a Baal Tshuva because of this 1973 war, Yom Kippur War. And this story was told him. He was present when this took place. For those of you who want a refresher on history or weren't around to hear about it then, 1973, the Syrians, the Egyptians, the Jordanians all attacked the state of Israel. And because the Golan was not what they thought was fairly secure at that point, there was only a minimal number of troops stationed up on the Golan. And the Syrians overran the Golan, and a small battalion of soldiers fought them off, and held them off, and they kept on sending some troops up there while they could spare them to hold off the Syrians from actually running all the way into Tveria. In the meantime, in the desert, the Egyptian army was within 2 weeks was surrounded, and they were able to send fresh troops up to the Golan, and it was hand-to-hand combat to drive the Syrian troops back across the Golan. Now, this is not a political speech. It's just history. More soldiers died in that battle on the Golan than all of the other wars of Israel combined. There is a valley up on the Golan that's called Emek HaBachar, the Valley of Tears, because so many soldiers died on the Golan. Finally, the last contingent of fresh troops rushed up to the Golan and were able to drive the Syrian troops back into Syria. And the general of The army came to decorate the soldiers, to put medals of honor upon the soldiers who had won the battle. And there were some few of the troops that had survived the early fighting. In the first week of battle, when so many young men lost their lives, there were a few survivors. But none of them would ever live what we would call a normal life again. First of all, they lost their best friends. Secondly, none of them were whole anymore. Limbs, and eyes. But they had managed to survive. And as the general went giving the medals of honor upon these brave young men, he saw they had given everything that they had for the Jewish people. And as he pinned the medal of honor upon their bandages, he knew that the price that they had paid was so far beyond what he could even compensate for. And tears flowed down his cheeks as he went from soldier to soldier, putting on the medals of honor. And then came the troops that had been up there for 2 weeks. Their uniforms were tattered and torn, they were wounded. They were able to stand when he gave them the medals of honor. And tears flowed again, seeing the price the Jewish soldiers would pay for the Jewish people. And he finally came to the soldiers who were up there for 3 days. The last push to drive the Syrians across the border. These soldiers, their uniforms were hardly creased. They were still very fresh. They were, they had more than just a little stubble on their faces. That was the whole cost of being up there. And he stood there by the first soldier and he said, "How can I put this same medal of honor upon you as I put upon those soldiers over there? Look what they gave. They gave everything. They gave of their friends. They gave of themselves. They'll never live a healthy day in their life again. How can I put this very same medal of honor upon you as I put upon them?" And the young man began to cry. Tears rolled down his face. And he said, "General, it is not because I was not willing that I was not here for the last 3 weeks. But Zeh Goral, this was the lot. It was not destined that I should be there then, I was sent now. Had I been there for all 3 weeks, I too would have given my life and all of my limbs for the sake of my people. But the Almighty designed it that I should be here for the end rather than for the beginning of the battle." And the general smiled. Put the medal of honor on his shirt too. He says, "You're right. It's the willingness, not always when you showed up for the battle." It is now officially, it's almost January 2nd. 00. It is, we bench Rosh Chodesh today for Shabbat, Tafshin Samach. We're in the final quarter, the last 2 minutes of play before Mashiach shows up. The Jewish people who've been around for 3,500 years, it has cost us our limbs, our eyes, and our young and our old, in all of the battles for the survival of the Jewish people. The Jews who withstood the destruction of the temples, the Greeks, the Romans, the Persians, the Jews who survived the Crusades, those who didn't, the Jews who survived the pogroms of Eastern Europe and the communist oppression, the Jews who survived the Holocaust. If we look at the scars and the wounds of the generations that came before us, the price that they paid, that we should be a Jewish people, is beyond our comprehension. And I ask myself, we live now in good times. It's not so hard to be a Jew anymore. You can find every flavor of coffee that you want with a hechsher on it. It's not hard. It's not hard to be a Torah Jew in today's world. Which language do you want your Torah in? Hit the internet, you'll get it. It's not hard. We're living in a time where our uniforms are barely soiled. The crease is still there. And we want to carry with that badge of honor to say, we are part of the Jewish people and we are proud to be Jews. We're proud to live Torah. We're proud to be connected. And the general is standing there and wants to know what gives this generation the right to be so proud when it was the previous generations who paid the price. And what will we say? Had we been in the Inquisition, we too would have given ourselves and our lives rather than give up what we believe. If we would have been in the massacres of Chmielnicki when he converted Jews by the sword, would we have died rather than give up our belief? If we were in the prisons of the communist regimes of Eastern Europe, and they would say, if you deny that there is a God in this world, we'll give you work. If not, you'll languish in prison. Would we have done that too? And so I say, as that soldier said then, up on the Golan, it is not because we would not be willing to have given, but because our lot fell out in this generation. Had we been willing, had we been there, we too would have been willing to give of ourselves, because Am Yisrael Chai. The gift of the neshama that every Jew has is that we too, if we would have been subjected to that test, we too would have given what they gave. And that's why we're here tonight. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu saw when he said, Hashem, I don't want to know why the righteous suffer and why the evil prosper. Because then the price that the children of Israel will have to pay will be one that doesn't take that into account. And so we too want to be Jews who are worthy of the coming of Mashiach. Because had we been through all these trials, we too would have stayed ready to say, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu Hakimah, Eliyahu Hatishbi, la 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 la
la la la la la la guest star, Mr. Rocky Zweig.
everyone for coming. I want to thank Rabbi Twersky. Rabbi Yitzchak is here, a great friend of ours. We're so glad that you were able to come. Good night, all. See you February 3rd and 4th.
Thank you all for being yourselves. Now please do that somewhere else.